Hey everyone, waiting for a deep dive. We're going to unlock the secrets of everyday arguments today. We've got some really cool sources on informal logic. And don't worry, this isn't like your boring high school debate club stuff.
No, not at all. Get ready for a treat because we're going deep into the arguments we see all the time, like on social media and those scientific papers, even how that one persuasive friend always seems to get their way.
Okay, you got me hooked. But before we go after my friends, maybe we can break down what this informal logic thing is all about.
Well, you know the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy?
Sure.
They describe it as, well, it's trying to make logic actually useful, like for real world thinking and how we can all get better at it. It's for the arguments we use daily, not just those super formal ones from, philosophy class.
Oh, so it's less about winning a shouting match and more about actually understanding why we believe things.
You got it. Informal logic is all about explaining the why. It is giving reasons, showing your evidence, explaining why you see things the way you do.
I see. So less about being right and more about explaining your thinking. Okay. The source had this example, a simple one, about small businesses. They said, small businesses are important because they provide opportunities.
Perfect example. See that word because.
Yeah.
That's how we know we're moving from just a statement to an actual argument. The because is giving us the reason, that premise that's backing up the claim.
So every time I hear because I should get ready for an argument.
Well, it's a good clue. Sometimes, though, it's just obvious someone's trying to convince you, even without a because. The point is, they're giving reasons for their view.
Right. Makes sense. So we have a claim and we've got reasons. Is that all there is to an argument?
Well, get this. Arguments aren't always just words. We can use pictures, videos, even sounds. Think about those Mars rover pictures. Powerful stuff.
Wait, hold on. Pictures could be arguments. I'm going to need a visual for this.
Okay, so remember those NASA photos, the ones where the Mars rover is digging a trench?
Uh-huh.
Well, scientists were trying to figure out if there was water ice on Mars, right? The pictures themselves became part of the argument.
Okay, I'm picturing it. How did a picture become an argument?
So the first photo, it shows this white crust in the corner of the trench. 4 Martian days later, they take another picture. Same spot, but the white crust is gone. Poof.
So the pictures, they were giving evidence, leading to the idea that there was water ice and it evaporated.
Exactly. The scientists did give explanations, but those photos, those were key. Not just pretty pictures, but visual evidence.
Wow. Never thought of photos that way. It's like a silent argument you're watching.
It happens all the time. Political cartoons, they're often visual arguments using satire, symbols, to make their point. Like, remember that cartoon, Napoleon III as a porcupine, all bristling with bayonets?
Yeah, vaguely. Had an argument.
Well, Napoleon was all about the empire as peace, But the cartoon, by showing him as this armed porcupine, it's saying his actions don't match his words.
Ah, got it. The picture is showing the contrast, peaceful talk versus all those weapons.
Exactly. A strong example of how visuals can argue, even without words. And, sometimes those unspoken parts are the most important.
You're talking about those hidden premises, right? The stuff that's underneath a simple statement. Like the source had dogfighting case.
Yes. The Humane Society person, they argued that small penalties for dogfighting weren't enough to stop it. Sounds straightforward, right? But let's look closer.
I have a feeling there's more to it.
You bet. There are hidden premises at work here. Like, one is that criminal penalties should be all about stopping people from doing it again. Another is that prison, that's always a strong deterrent.
So the whole argument, it relies on these unsaid assumptions.
Absolutely. These unstated premises, we call them enthymemes, they're key to figuring out if an argument is any good. What if we disagree that punishment should be all about stopping future crime? What if we think there are better ways to stop people than prison? The argument falls apart, even if what they said out loud is true.
Whoa, I'm starting to see how knowing these hidden premises can totally change how you see an argument.
It's like one of those optical illusions, You think you see one thing, then you shift your view, and bam, a whole new image.
Mind blown? Informal logic, it's like a decoder ring for everyday arguments. And we're just getting started.
Welcome back. Still diving deep into informal logic.
We're learning to spot those hidden premises, right? Decoding those everyday arguments.
Exactly. And speaking of hidden stuff, let's talk about judging premises as just true or false. Feels like real-life arguments, they're rarely that simple.
Yeah, it's like trying to, I don't know, fit the ocean in a teacup or something. Our source mentioned this, saying a premise can be acceptable even if we're not sure it's 100% true.
You got it. It's not always black and white. Sometimes a premise might be, well, plausible, or it's generally accepted in a certain field even if we can't totally prove it.
Okay, need an example for this one.
Imagine some scientists, right, debating a new theory. They might use a working hypothesis as a premise, even though it's not, confirmed yet. Not true in the absolute sense, but acceptable for, exploring the theory.
Ah, so it's like a stepping stone, a place to start building an argument from.
Exactly. Or think about those beliefs everyone in a field kind of agrees on. They might not be universally true, but they're accepted as a starting point for, well, for discussions in that context.
So context is super important here. What works in one place might not in another.
Absolutely. Our source really stressed that. Context is huge when we're figuring out if arguments are good. Like a super emotional story, that might work great in a charity ad,
Yeah,
but it wouldn't fly in a scientific paper.
makes sense. A sad story might make you donate, but it's not going to win a science debate.
Right. Same premise, acceptable in one place, totally irrelevant somewhere else. Depends on the goal, the audience.
This is reminding me, we talked about different approaches to arguments. I was fascinated by the idea of different types of validity. I always thought validity was like a yes or no thing.
But logic's got these cool little twists. Informal logic, it recognizes that there are different ways to be valid, each with its own strengths and weaknesses.
Okay, explain it like I'm 5. What are these other validities?
Well, we have inductive reasoning, which is basically we see something happening a bunch of times, so we assume it'll keep happening, like predicting how many people there will be in the future based on how things are going now. It's about making good guesses based on patterns.
So it's like this happened in the past, probably going to happen in the future.
Exactly. Then there's conductive reasoning. It's gathering evidence from all over the place to support an idea. Think of a detective collecting clues to solve a case. Each clue might not be enough on its own, but together they make a strong case.
Like a puzzle, each piece adds to the picture.
Yep. And then we have abductive reasoning, where we pick the best explanation for what we see. Doctors do this all the time, right? Considering different diagnoses and choosing the one that fits the symptoms best.
So it's like eliminating possibilities, finding the most likely answer with what we know.
You got it. Now, these types, they're not as, how do I say it, as airtight as deductive validity. That's about absolute certainty. These guys, they deal with probabilities, what's likely, which is how we reason in real life, right? We rarely have all the info.
I'm seeing arguments in a whole new light. It's not about finding the one right answer. It's about getting to reasonable conclusions in different ways.
And with that understanding, you're on your way to becoming, well, a better listener and a more persuasive person yourself.
Feeling pretty good about that. But I'm wondering, are there any tools we can use to put all this into practice? Like, how do we actually analyze arguments in the wild?
Absolutely. Our sources mention something called argument schemes. These are like patterns of reasoning we see all the time.
Oh, like those classic appeals to authority? Or the slippery slope, those ones everyone uses.
Bingo. Each argument scheme has these critical questions that go with it. We can use them to see how strong the argument is. For example, someone might use Einstein to talk about nuclear weapons.
Yeah?
Sounds impressive, right? Einstein, the genius.
Yeah, hard to argue with that.
True, but is he the right kind of expert for this argument? That's one of those critical questions. Is the authority actually qualified to talk about this specific topic?
So even if they're a big name, got to check if they actually know what they're talking about. Just because someone's brilliant in one area doesn't mean they are in everything.
You're getting it. That's just one example. These argument schemes, they give us a way to systematically break down arguments, see their strengths and weaknesses, a roadmap for logic.
Super helpful. It's like having, I don't know, a cheat sheet for understanding how people try to convince us.
And since we're on persuasion, what about fallacies, those classic ones? Are they just bad argument schemes?
That's what I always thought. Aren't they like logical traps we should avoid?
It's not that black and white. Some, like ad hominem attacks, yeah, they're usually bad. But even those can be legit sometimes.
Hold on, really. When would an ad hominem attack ever be okay? Seems like attacking up a person, not their argument. That's always a low blow.
Okay, imagine someone making claims about, I don't know, physics. But they've got a history of lying or being biased in that field. Pointing that out, it might actually be important to the argument.
So it's not just a personal attack, it's giving relevant info about their credibility.
Exactly. The point is, even those classic fallacies, we gotta look at them in context. No hard and fast rules, which makes informal logic so interesting.
It's like detective work. We got to gather the evidence, look at the context, find those clues that tell us if an argument is strong or weak.
And with practice, you'll be a master logic detective, solving those argument mysteries.
Back again for the final part of our informal logic deep dive.
Where we get to use all those cool tools we've been talking about.
I'm ready to put on my logic detective hat. But first, maybe a quick recap for everyone listening. We learned that arguments, it's all about giving reasons, those premises, to back up what we're saying.
Right. And those arguments, they could be words, pictures, or even both. Remember those Mars rover photos? So cool. Visuals can be really persuasive.
Yeah. We also talked about unpacking the hidden stuff, the enthymemes, right? They're hiding under those simple statements, but they totally change how we see the argument.
Absolutely. And remember, acceptable isn't always the same as true when it comes to premises. Could be plausible, like generally agreed upon in a field, even useful in a negotiation, even if we're not 100% sure it's true.
And don't forget, validity comes in different flavors. We've got that rock-solid deductive kind, but also the more subtle ones, inductive, conductive, abductive reasoning.
And we've got our toolkit now. Argument schemes, critical questions, all ready to help us break down those arguments we see every day.
Phew, we did cover a lot. But I think everyone's wondering, so what? Why does all this informal logic stuff matter? How does it actually help us out there in the real world?
The million-dollar question. Think about it. You're way more aware now of the arguments around you. In the news, online, even just chatting with friends.
Right. I see arguments everywhere now. And I'm not just like taking it all in anymore.
Exactly. You're analyzing, right, spotting hidden assumptions, figuring out how strong the reasoning is. You're not just watching the argument, you're in the game.
I feel like I have a superpower. I can see through those like weak appeals to authority now, those slippery slopes trying to trick me, all that stuff meant to like shut down my critical thinking.
And now you can make your own arguments better, clearer, more precise. You can guess what questions people will ask, build strong arguments that actually convince people you're not just giving opinions, you're building a case.
And this is bigger than just like winning debates, right? This is about being a better thinker overall, a better communicator, a more informed person.
Exactly. Informal logic, it helps you in every part of life. Relationships, work, even just trying to understand all the information out there these days.
It really is like a toolkit for understanding and engaging with, well, everything. And the cool part is this toolkit, it keeps getting updated.
That's right. Our sources mention how research on visual argumentation and all its different forms is still going strong. Imagine the new ways we'll be arguing as technology changes how we talk to each other.
The future of arguing. Kind of exciting, right? Who knows what new argument schemes and critical questions we'll need as things change.
It's a reminder to stay curious, keep learning, keep adapting as the world of arguments keeps changing. Persuasion, it's a powerful force, and understanding informal logic, well, that lets us use that power for good.
That is a powerful thought. We hope this deep dive has, I don't know, made you all more curious and given you a new appreciation for how arguments work, even the everyday ones.
Don't forget, the world is full of arguments waiting to be analyzed, understood, broken down, so go out there and think critically.
And tell us about it. Share your argument analysis adventures. We'd love to hear what you've learned from this deep dive. Until next time, happy arguing, everyone.